So yeah, good morning, guys. My name is Nasser Abdel Fattah, and I'm an admissions counselor here at Vermont Law School. Specifically, I work with graduate students in the master's degree programs and dual degree interest as well. And I'm going to hand it over to my coworker to introduce herself.
Hello, I am Genevieve. I also am in the admissions office. I specialize with master's and LLM students who are seeking online programs. Fantastically, because so much of the information is the same between residential and online, I am absolutely available to support and answer questions. But we're very happy to have you all here with us now and are excited to talk about the application process.
Thank you so much, Genevieve. So yeah, just to get started, Genevieve put this in the chat already, but if you guys have any questions, please feel free to add them to the Q&A and we will do our best to answer them as we go. We will stop along the way in this presentation. So if you guys have any questions related to what we're talking about, you'll have more than enough opportunity to do so. And of course, at the end, we'll field any questions as well. So to get started, I just kind of wanted to share with you Vermont. Here's a picture of what it would look like now if you were visiting on campus or walking around. I will say it's pretty cold right now. It's about like 20 degrees here. It has gotten a little colder earlier in the month, but beautiful campus nonetheless. And what I also want to show you guys is a picture of campus when you guys would be arriving in the fall. Very beautiful, luscious colors. Any outdoor enthusiast, this is a great playground to walk around and do hiking, swimming, anything of the sort. But yeah, so this PowerPoint that we're going to be sharing with you guys is related to the application. Along the way, we're going to talk about tips and tricks about what you guys can do to have an effective app and what we've got from commenters, from reviewers, we'll share with you as well. So to start, I'm just going to share you just an overview of what we're going to talk about, and then we'll dive into each area in more detail. But to get started, you're going to apply online at Vermont Law School's website. There's a form that you're going to complete. If there's any questions that you have, you're welcome to reach out and contact us. At the end of this PowerPoint, we will share a slide with our contact information, and I will add mine to the chat as well. Another thing that we'll go over is essays. There's one required essay, and then there's two optional ones. Letters of recommendation, attaching a resume or CV, your transcripts, and lastly, there are further requirements for international applicants as well as dual degree seeking students, etc. So yeah, to get started, we're going to talk about the essays. The first essay that we're going to talk about is the required personal statement. This is going over your goals. This is you talking about why do you want to pursue the master's degree? Why is this a passion? So let's say you're a MELP student and you're interested in water law specialization. Maybe there's a current event or a topic that's motivated you in the recent years that really has you going, this is why I want to pursue this path. This is what I want to get into. And then you want to talk about why Vermont Law School will help you get to those goals. Will help you get those goals. When writing the essay, we suggest that it's about 1 to 2 pages. For the reader for the reviewers to be able to go through. And you really want it again to just be your best example of clear, concise writing and going over again, though, just, why you want this degree and why this is going to help you move forward in your career. Next, there are 2 essays that are optional. The first one is affect change. So this can be something in relation to a personal issue that you're working with, local or national significance. So if there is something in the recent months or years that you've joined in, that you've seen and you've been joining in terms of like getting involved in groups, working with nonprofits, we really want to hear that. And you're more than welcome to highlight and talk about how you've been working professionally or through your academics in these fields. Lastly, this third essay relates to people on different levels, but it's an academic one. And if you're in the situation where this statement might ring true to you, My GPA doesn't necessarily reflect my current academics. An example of this could be, and a common one, I'm going to share two, but one could be your first year of undergrad. Sometimes that first semester can be a little rough. You're transitioning from high school. So sometimes, you're trying to figure out your major, and your GPA wasn't as strong that first semester. What you would do is you would write about that. You would tell us what was going on. You're adapting to change. You're trying to get into the flow of doing schoolwork, but then you also want to highlight that, like after this moment, I did start improving and I did start working on my academia, and everything did start working out. It's also a chance to talk about if there is anything personal that was going on. So if, you have a really strong freshman, sophomore year, and then halfway through your junior year, there's gaps in your transcript of, not us doing as well. And maybe something personal happened to you. And you're welcome to disclose as much as you feel comfortable with, just to get us to understand, what was going on. And lastly, another example of this, and this, rings true for me, I would say, and I'm going to use one of my classes as an example. And actually, I should have said this earlier. I'm also an alum of the MELT program. I got the degree in the fall 2017, and I specialized in water law, and water quality policy was the area. But one thing that I considered writing about for one of my essays was I took a hydrogeology class my junior year at Johnson State College, and unfortunately, for some reason, I didn't have any calculus background, but I somehow managed to get into the class. It was really difficult, and unfortunately, my other classes weren't as strong as they could have been, because I had to focus so much time on trying to learn calculus and hydrogeology all at the same time. So we can relate to that. So we understand your situation. The reviewer, if you want to talk about that, they will understand where you're coming from when they're looking at your resume. So yeah. And on that note, I guess, is there any questions related to the essays, or the required essays or the optional essays?
So we don't have any questions in our Q&A yet, but a kind of common sentiment, I won't say it's really a question, is whether a candidate has to submit all three essays. Is a candidate stronger if they submit all three essays? Does a really strong personal statement negate having to submit the optional essays?
So I would say that's a great question, Genevieve. So that would be a mix. If you're able to, because there are some people I talk to about this, in terms of the effect change optional essay, I do find that it is common that some of the themes that you write in your personal statement sometimes also have a common flow with the effect change. So if you do find yourself that you're in a boat that your personal statement is talking about this nonprofit that is working on getting local food resources to farmers markets and to different hospitals and food shelves, then you probably don't have to write the effect change essay. It's probably something that you're already going to have written up in your personal statement. So it would definitely be, a real judgment on that, I would say, give or take. If you find that your personal statement, you wrote about something that you saw, a current event that really has you motivated right now, and this is why you want to go to law school, but you just want us to know a little extra about yourself. That's when I would say effect change comes in perfectly. You can say, like, although you have your motivating essay about this, but then you let us know, hey, on the side, when I'm not, passionate about this and this, I'm also working for this nonprofit, and I'm doing all of this change in terms of bringing local food systems in. And I'm going to use food systems a lot. I am a farmers market manager here in Vermont, so it's a very common theme with me. But next, with the academic one, I will say that is something I would say I would keep separate. It's important for the reviewers to, in my opinion, the way that I've seen people write out their personal statement, and unless the event or something that's motivating you had an effect on your academics, It's not going to be something you're going to be putting right into the required essay. And going a little more detailed into the academic optional essay, it also provides you a chance to, like, if we're talking about semesters, maybe it was just one semester, this will give you a chance to talk about those courses individually on their own without distracting the reader from your personal statement in your effect change essay. Another note with the academic, let's say it's a one semester, you took 5 classes, 2 of them were really great, and the other 3 you had a hard time with. You don't need to write about the 2 that you did well in. You can acknowledge that, you were strong in these 2 classes, but then the reader just wants to hear more about, well, what happened with those other 3 courses? It's also not a place, if you're worried about a majority, if you're too, you don't want it to be something that you're writing about every single course that you've taken in undergrad. It's really more of a platform for you to say, this is what was happening at the time, and this is why I want you to consider, when you look at my transcript, please consider these situations that I went through when taking these classes. So is there any question or clarification from that?
No, I found that really helpful. Thank you, Nasser.
Thank you.
And no further questions in the Q&A. Yeah.
Awesome. So we'll move on to our next part. Oh, hold on one second there. Apologies, my PowerPoint seems to be, there we go. So next we'll be talking about the resume and the CV.
And so I'll talk about this a little bit specifically. What we're looking for, and the form itself outlines that it needs to be a professional resume. It needs to cover work since high school. The best takeaway from those directions is that it should be something that you would take to a professional interview. So we're looking for relevant experience, relevant skills, and really an outline of what you've been working professionally and even potentially academically. I know my personal resume has my academics on it as well. Many of our students, residentially and online, are coming to our program after an extended period in the workforce. Sometimes that translates to 5, 10, 20 years of professional work. And in a lot of those cases, trying to outline every single position that they've held since graduating high school may turn it into a 3 or 4 or 5 page endeavor. So in those cases, we are looking for something that is comprehensive and relevant for, again, these specific types of programs, whether it's the environmental masters or LLMs or our restorative justice master's program. It is always a very, very good decision to have these resumes, CVs, essays edited, reviewed by another set of eyes, because that is what our reviewers will be doing. As you are working through the application, there will also be a section called Character and Fitness. It is absolutely imperative to answer these questions truthfully, honestly. The concept here is that you will need to disclose any event for each of these questions transparently in the case that you might pursue a higher degree in the future. Our program is part of a larger law school, and students who are applying to the law school have to fill out this character and fitness questionnaire in advance of sitting for the bar. And so it absolutely impacts long-term professional endeavors for the vast majority of our students. So in those cases, so even in our master's programming, we do require these answers to the character and fitness questions. They are not intrusive. They are not, at this point, they're 1, 2, 3, 4 in from these required materials. So just like the resume should be comprehensive. We take a very comprehensive look at an entire application. So one field, one selection is just one portion of everything that we would look to evaluate. So Nasser, I'm going to pause there for a couple of questions. I don't see any raised in the question and answer section yet. Nasser, have you come across, say, feedback from the residential reviewing committee regarding resumes?
Yes, and I do have a couple comments that I can share on that too. So a professional resume or CV, what we're looking for, exactly what Genevieve was talking about. It's a sheet of paper that's going to tell us everything that's going on with you. So to clarify on that, when you submit your application, we would like your professional resume to be uploaded as a Word document or a PDF. Forms of which that we don't accept resumes or CVs, and we've had this in the past, is we don't take website links. So I understand that some of you, might be professionals and you might have a whole website dedicated to your careers. And maybe you have a link that goes to a CV or a resume. The reviewer might not necessarily have the time to be able to go through and look at those links and go through your website. But, print off that resume that you have on your website, upload that as a PDF. If you want the reviewer to look at your website, include that in your resume or CV. Really direct, you can direct the viewer, and if they have time, they will look at it. They really do want to look at everything about you. So it just makes their job easier in terms of reading and understanding you if they can have the document that is your resume or your CV. Another thing that has been submitted in the past, or no, I'm sorry, that has been asked, not submitted, is business cards. They don't count as a resume or a CV. I know that it says your name and it might say a job title and it gives you like your contact information, but that doesn't give us an idea at all about who you are. We really want to see that history. What have you been doing? If you are going the non-traditional route, so you graduated from undergrad and you took 10 years off, we want to see what's going on there. And one thing that I just want to note is use your best judgment, like with your essays, about how much detail you want to share. So I understand, if some of you guys are coming right from undergrad, share as much experience as you have that you feel is relevant to the field, because I understand that not everybody has the same exposure in their different undergrads to be as involved. So make sure that you just, that you show, what you've been up to. Now, if you're non-traditional route, it's been 5+ years since you graduated from undergrad and now you're pursuing the master's degree. Really use your best judgment with what you're going to present on your resume or CV. If you feel, if you've been you graduated and you stayed in the field from your career for that whole 10 years, that's great. That's awesome. Put that there. But if you found that you've been changing careers, and you've been moving a lot, so you have a lot in terms of your resume load, then maybe, just consider your best judgment in terms of how, what do the reviewers need to know about you. So yeah, that would be the comments I have for the resume. And then just to chime off of what Genevieve said with character and fitness, always be upfront and honest. That is the best policy. Again, if you're going to be advancing your careers, there are going to be reviews, there are going to be character and fitnesses, and you don't want to be in a situation where you found that you didn't report something that you really should have. So if you have any questions though about this, please feel free to talk to us at the admissions office. We have heard, trust me, we've heard different situations, and we can definitely tell you whether or not you should list it as character and fitness. Yeah, so that would be my only 2 cents from the reviewer side.
Great, thank you, Nasser. I really appreciate the kind of difference between an applicant, a candidate who is joining us directly after their undergraduate program, and that resume then looking different necessarily from an applicant who is joining us from, a few years into their professional endeavors. Simply to drive that home, it is neither of those applicants is stronger or weaker than the other applicant on its surface. So it's again really beneficial as a candidate to make sure that your whole application works with itself. As you're submitting your essay, if you haven't been in school for 5 or 10 years, and yet maybe you haven't been in the professional field because you've been volunteering or because you've been taking on familial responsibilities, those kinds of applicants can still be very strong applicants without having a professional timeline for the last 4 years. So certainly, I hope that the takeaway from these, at least these two first, but the whole process, the whole application process is it is up to each of our candidates to help our reviewing committee really understand their whole candidacy as a very comprehensive individual. So I think that's it. What's next, Nasser?
Let's apologies. There we go. So next we are going into the letters of recommendation. So yeah, to get started on that, for the I'm just going to list these things right here. So for the letters of recommendation, we require a minimum of 2 letters, and a maximum of 4. We ask that these letters come from 2 areas, very similar to what we were talking about with the resume just now. You want to have someone, if you're coming from undergrad, or if you've recently graduated from undergrad, an academic a letter of recommendation from a professor, maybe an advisor, someone on campus that can really speak to how you were and how you were as a student, to speak to any of your involvements and highlight any work or anything personal like that. Professional is in the same boat as well. If you found yourself that in undergrad you also had a summer job, working maybe in a related field or maybe doing an internship, that supervisor might be the right person to ask for the second letter of recommendation if they can speak on your work ethic, and any projects that you worked on and how you did as a whole, is really important as well. And if you find that you're in the non-traditional route, it's been a few years, like I've said before, maybe it's been 5 years or so, you can totally rely on professional letters of recommendation. They'll be able, supervisors, managers, they'll be able to speak on your work ethic, on any projects that you did on the drive, and being able to talk about, really at the end of the day, the goal is, are you going to be able to do this grad school program? So you really want your letters of recommendation to really represent you as a whole. You want to have people, the way that I've told a few students about this is, you want people that are going to write your letter of recommendation that is so glowing that if you didn't have your resume, that we would be like that, that they would really stand to your work ethic and be able to really say, this is a very strong candidate for your program. They're going to be able to do this, this, and this. And I've seen them, persevere in their classes. I've seen them work on projects on campus, or, professional. Like I've seen them, they work, they're coming to work. They're on time. They stay to the end of the day. They have really good work ethic. They're always communicating and they're always getting stuff done. We really want them to highlight, really make, really have glowing letters of recommendation. You really don't want one of those situations. You really don't. And you really want to make sure that they know you as a whole. The reason why I want to say this is because, sometimes with letters of recommendation, some people don't, some professors, some managers don't disclose the letter to the people that they're talking about, so you don't know what's in there. So we do now and again, we might get a letter that does say, I do not recommend this person for this program. And you really don't want, you really want to make sure your recommendation, who is sending it. If it's just someone that you might have had a class with and you had very limited interactions with, they're not going to be able to speak to you, speak about you in the program as strong that maybe as your advisor that you were involved with, that you talked a lot with, or maybe you had a professor, maybe you had one or two classes with, but you kept on working with them in some way or form, and they're able to really talk about it. And same for professionally. You really want to make sure that, you're asking, the right manager or the right supervisor to write your letter. If you know that maybe one doesn't have as much time and that letter might not be as strong as the other person that, that might take more time to write the letter, then you really want to consider that, because this really is supposed to represent you as a whole. One thing that I'm going to talk about with the letters of recommendation, I'm just going to mention this. I'll bring it up again when we're wrapping up the presentation as well. When you start the application with us, you're going to be when you start the application, you'll be filling out different fields as you go. One of the fields is going to be the letters of recommendation. It'll give you the area to upload the names, the contact information for it. So first and last name, title, job position that they're holding. And then it's going to ask for contact information. One will be a phone number and the other will be an email address. The email address is very important to upload to your letters of recommendation, because once you put that in to our form process, it automatically sends those letter of recommendation, those people, notification from our end saying, hey, when you have your letter of recommendation ready for this person, please feel free to upload it here. So on that note, I would strongly advise that you make sure that you've talked to your letter of recommendation people before you put their information into the form assembly. Once you do that, they're going to get notified. So if you do that and then talk to them, most likely they already know that you're going to be asking them for a letter of recommendation. But it just comes out, it's just better to, ask ahead of time. It will also send a reminder to them as well. And then once you submit the application online, they will get another reminder after that to upload it. Once they do upload it, though, the notification does get shut off and they won't get spammed with any more emails after that. And one note that I will say is if your recommender is having any issues uploading the letter, just get a hold of us. We will help. We will send you, we have email. We have an email resource. We can do it. We also have snail mail. Electronically is preferred always, because it's just quicker and we get it faster. But we will take it in whatever form that we can get it, as long as it comes from the person that's writing the letter. I think, anything I'm missing?
Nasser, can I interject just
Yes.
very quickly? I apologize.
Yeah, no.
So just to clarify that the communication to the recommender from Vermont Law School will not start until the candidate submits the application form. So that's the form online that you'll be putting all the candidates will be putting all the contact information in. What I have seen happen a number of times is an applicant will be working on their form and have the contact information in there, but the recommender will not get a notification until the form has been fully submitted. So it's, as Nasser was saying, absolutely have them on board, absolutely make them aware that this is going to be the process. But until you as a candidate submit the form fully, those triggered emails that Nasser was listing out won't start. So give them as much time as possible and submit your application even well before the application deadline, so that we can collect all those remaining materials, including these letters of recommendation. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. No, thank you so much for that. Um, yeah, is there any questions related to the LORs? Um,
I do have a question.
awesome.
It's that when we have had a question asked and answered in the Q&A, but
Okay.
uh, for our students that are joining us without having been in an academic program in the last couple of years,
Mhm.
what is their next best choice? Should they get an academic letter of recommendation from a professor from 10 years ago, even if they're still in contact with them, or should they go a different direction?
I think that they would, I think you got to go. Good situation question. So I would advise personally, if you know, because from what you said, if they're still in contact with that professor and they're still maintaining that relationship, then I would say go for it. If they can speak to it, most likely that recommendator will probably allude that it's been a while since they've seen him in the classroom, but they will be able to speak on that behalf. One thing that you want to avoid for recommendation letters is family, friends, people that are people that are close to you, because that is not as we really want people that can speak to you, act to your academics and to you professionally. Someone saying that, I've known this person since they were 5 years old, that's awesome, and we can trust that your kid, that that they're speaking on the best interest of you. But if they're not talking about what we really need to know, and the takeaway we really want is, how are you going to be in this program? It's a master's degree. We're looking at 30 credits. Is this candidate going to be strong, and is going to be able to persevere through it, and be able to reach out if they need help, and work on all of those things that are there. So long way of saying, yes, I would still reach out to the academic, because you really want to you really want someone to speak to your work ethic and how you were as a student. And this is the other time where I would say, you can have up to 4 letters. So if you know that there are a few, maybe you're gonna get, maybe that 3 of your letters are not, you have one really strong one, but that the other one isn't going to be as strong, well, then maybe I would consider maybe getting another letter. So having one that's really strong and talks about you, maybe that's the professional one, because you've been working in this field for the last 3 years or so they know you. And then you got two academic one. Maybe it was an advisor, you guys work together, they remember you, they're able to talk about how you were as a student. And then maybe a professor that can also be like, yeah, I had them for a few classes, really great student, did well in their coursework, asked for help. And those two together will stand strong with that other glowing one. So you have a lot of options here with the application process.
I think I really only have one other comment, so it's less of a question,
Yeah.
and it kind of is part of that tips and tricks suggestions that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And so do please forgive me if you did speak to this and I was answering texting a question. I have begun to experience individuals asking for a recommendation about a specific skill set or a specific experience. So as candidates, as you're selecting who you might be looking for a recommendation from, if you have in mind a very specific event or reason that you're seeking this recommender, think about sharing that with them.
Yeah.
Think about drawing their attention back to the reason that you think they would give you a good recommendation.
Yeah.
An example of that, if I had a prior supervisor who was very much involved with project management that I had started, and I was applying for something in project management, I would go to them and ask them to highlight how they perceived my project management skills being contributed to this project or to that project. It is entirely within the realm of acceptable to ask of your recommender a very specific instance or skill set or experience. So take that and take it as far as your mileage will.
Yes.
But I've seen a lot of very interesting responses having been directed like that.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, no, that's a really great comment. That's perfect. Does anyone have, I guess before we move on to the next part, does anyone have any questions about related to the letters of recommendation? All right. Oh, yeah. So yes, next we are going to talk about our transcripts. And let me just have that all up. There we go.
There we go. I always consider functionally transcripts as being pretty self-explanatory, but there always are a few little details here and there. Functionally, what we need at VLS in order to evaluate an application is a set of full degree granting transcripts from the undergraduate pursuits, and any other academic credit-bearing transcripts. We do need official copies on file for the instance where a person is admitted into our programs and then goes ahead and joins our programs. We need to have those official copies on file. We can make evaluations on unofficial copies. Unofficial copies of transcripts tend to be, say, an undergraduate degree that has not yet been completed because the application deadline is prior to your completing your undergraduate degree. That would be an unofficial copy. And that would actually be something we could accept from you directly, instead of necessarily from the institution. Unofficial copies will be anything, say that's an incomplete degree, or an official copy that you might already have your hands on that you open and scan for us. So something that we receive from the candidate directly is technically an unofficial copy. An official copy of transcripts comes to Vermont Law School directly from the institution. So whether that's an undergraduate institution or a prior graduate program, additional credits, not towards a degree, but that you took at the community college because you were interested in this or that or the other. Those transcripts need to come directly to us from that institution. That is also the case for international applicants. I'll get into that a little bit here in a few moments, but international transcript evaluations do have to be sent to us from the evaluating agency and not from the candidate. That's the delineation between official versus unofficial. So before I get into kind of the additional few materials for international applicants, I also want to talk about academic credit-bearing transcripts. There are so many instances where an individual has attended more than one institution in order to complete their undergraduate degree. Say they started with an associate's degree and then moved into a bachelor's degree. Any credits from the undergraduate level that are reflected in the official degree granting transcripts, we wouldn't need a second set of transcripts for. However, anything that was pursued and is not in the degree granting transcripts, we do need copies of those, official copies of those transcripts. So I'll just think of another example. Let's say that a candidate completes their bachelor's degree fully at one institution. We would need that degree granting transcript. And then let's say they pursued a higher level certificate or certification program that's not a full master's degree or even a full, second bachelor's degree, but it's from a different institution and therefore not on the original degree granting transcripts. We would need both of those transcripts in order to evaluate that application. I know it's kind of complicated. It's very much in the weeds for individuals who may have only received one undergraduate degree at this point, but it's worth mentioning at the very least. So I will invite questions for transcripts into the Q&A. That tends to be kind of a nuts and bolts kind of question. But I certainly can pause here for a second before jumping into more information about international applicants. I'm also not hugely skilled at patience, so without a couple of questions there. I mentioned that there are transcript evaluations that are required for our international applicants. There are a few institutions that do that. SPAN, TRAN, ECE, there's one called WES, WES. Those are all accredited services. That's the big key, is that the transcript evaluation has to be completed by an accredited evaluation agency. Then the rest of the application does need to be completed. The form online does need to be completed. And we do have an English language requirement. Being here in Vermont, individuals who are coming to the United States from an international institution may be required to submit TOEFL or IELTS scores. Definitely have a conversation with your admissions counselor on that front, so that we can kind of best prepare each of you as a candidate for what to expect. There is an entire page on international applicants. I'm going to drop that into the chat here really quickly. And without other questions, I think we may be able to move on to the next part of information.
Sounds good. Thank you, Genevieve.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, so now we're gonna I'm just gonna lay out the deadline for everyone right now and how this will work. Yeah. So in this process, I'm just going to go over just the general gist of how this will all play out. So April 15th is your application deadline. That is when we ask that you have the form that you started from the link that's provided in the chat that you've hit submit. You've acknowledged, you've signed, acknowledged, and hit submit. If for some reason, one thing that's and that will count going forward. So with that, submitting your application, you just want to make sure you have the correct attached materials. So that will be your essays, the optional essays, your resume or CV. You're making sure that all of the contact information is correct for your recommendations. Email address, though, I'll stress that again, really needs to be included for those recommendators so that they can submit and so that they can get the automated responses and prompts to do so. Another thing that submitting your application that needs to be addressed is if you are considering scholarships for some of the majors like the MELP, the MEFELP, the MAR, the restorative justice, all have some specialized scholarships that you can apply for. And those you can find for scholarships for first time for new students on our website. We will share that information with you as well. With that, it's a prompt of asking you an essay. It's an essay prompt response for the scholarship. So what you'll do is once you finish your scholarship essay, you will then add it to your application as well and submit it. This all relates, though, to contacting us here at the admission office about what's going on with you guys. So let's say for some reason you're running late on hitting that, you're not able to hit submit on April 15th. An extenuating circumstance came up. You really want to apply, though. You're serious about it. You just need a little bit more time. Contact us. Keep us in the loop. Let us know. We will work with you to make sure that we can get that submitted and that we can try to get you fitted in for the fall. But if you're not in contact with us, it's going to make it really hard for us to know what's going on. things do come up in life. So, maybe you started the app and that was it. You just didn't, you wanted to move on to something else. And that's all we really know, because we're not talking, we don't hear from you. So it's really important that you stay in contact with us. This will also be important. Let's say you mistyped the email for one of your recommendations. We have the power on our end to edit that for you so that they can get those notifications. We can also help if you need to if you're having any issues uploading, let us know. Let's say you submitted the application on April 15th, but for some reason your essays and your resume failed to upload. Get a hold of us, send it. We will work with you to get those files submitted to us and uploaded to your application for the reviewer. So we will work with you along the way. And along those notes as well, part of my role here, and Genevieve's as well, is to stay in contact with you along the application process. So most likely, once you submit your application, you might hear from me. You'll probably get a phone call from me saying, "Hey, just got your application. This is, excited to see it." I'll keep you in the loop as we get your materials. And the significance of that is, in order for us to move your application to review, we need to have everything. So, we'll have the essay already, we'll have your resume already, but your letters of recommendation, sometimes your recommendator might send everything early. In that case, that's great. We'll attach it to your essay, we'll attach it to your application, and, we'll let you know. So let's say, you'll get a phone call from me saying, "Hey, we have your app." You might get a follow-up from me a week or two later saying, "Hey, we got one of your letters of recommendation. We don't have the second one. And we're still waiting on your transcripts. Can we, have you been in contact with your school's registrar?" And then you might get another follow-up call from me a week or two later, saying the same thing, like, "Hey, we got your we have that first letter of recommendation. We got your transcripts. We need that second letter of recommendation, though, in order to move your application into review." And then lastly, once we have all the materials, you'll hear from me again, and I'll let you know that, your application goes into review. And from there, it typically takes 3 to 4 weeks to hear a decision. And what will happen is you'll get a notified email from Vermont Law School welcoming you, but you'll also get a call from me, talking to you about the program, any scholarships that you've been awarded, and next steps. And going into these next steps, one thing that you guys will get in the mail is a welcome packet that'll have a little treat from us, a letter officially welcoming you to the program, and then a few other things to be aware of, like the deposit deadline, start dates, and information like that. And if you have any questions, though, about any of that, once you get accepted, things pop up, reach out to us. Let us know if we can connect you to an advisor, if we can connect you to financial aid, or anyone that can help you on campus. We're here to support you in that role. So the deposit deadlines, the first one is April 15th for the application deadline. And then the second one is June 15th. For the second deadline. And I guess, Genevieve, just a general question for you that I actually just students might have. Let's say they submitted their application on April 15th. They don't have a decision yet. So how does one go about their first deposit if they don't know yet?
No, that's a great question. So I will answer it, but I'm going to push back a little bit and say that the best way to be prepared for that first deposit deadline is to have your application submitted and completed as early as possible. It helps you as a candidate make your most informed decisions. We very much wish to be the institution that you're going to apply to, but realistically, you might have a couple of pathways in front of you. So if that is the case and you're waiting on some pieces of information before you make that first deposit, the best thing to do is have your application submitted and ready to go now. I hope at this point we've been able to really identify that the process is not hugely complicated, pretty straightforward, and with a little bit of dedicated attention, a candidate can have an application in and ready for consideration. Let's see, it's the 5th of March. By the end of March, if all of the attendees today were to go this weekend, write their essays, work on collecting their recommenders, requesting transcripts from their other institutions, an application could be complete within the next 2 or 3 weeks, and then go into that review process, the deciding process, and have a decision issued well in advance of the April 15th deadline. Now, having indicated that is my recommendation, for somebody who is just unable to have their application fully completed until April 15th, the thing to do is be in communication with your admissions advisor, because we certainly can grant extensions to these deposit deadlines. Those extensions are granted on a case-by-case basis. So the case that somebody's application isn't complete would likely grant them an extension. Though that is probably the actual answer to the question.
No, that's perfect. Thank you. No, thank you so much. It just occurred to me that I didn't thank you for fielding that. Thank you for taking that question. I personally was just like, let's get some clarifying real quickly on that. But yes, that makes total sense, and definitely stay in contact with us along the way for sure. Yeah. So does anyone have any? Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, there is a question.
Awesome.
Related to online applications and online deadlines. Hoping to start in the summer, it sounds like. So are online program applicants able to apply and start in the summer semester? What is that deadline?
Is is it March 15th?
April 18th.
April 18th. Oh, so April 18th is the summer is the summer application deadline. Now, it is no different, and Genevieve, please correct me, than what we've already talked about in this PowerPoint. It's all the same. It's the same form. You just want to indicate, though, when you go into the form that you're looking for online. Now, granted, if you submit and you changed your mind, again, stay in contact with us. We can work to update your form and change and help you move forward from there. So yeah, April 18th is that. And with that, there are two, should I touch upon the two terms? There are
just a little bit. Yeah. So residentially, a person is at this point, they're looking to start in the fall semester and take classes during the full fall semester. If somebody is looking for a summer online start, I think, Nestor, this is what you were just getting at, is that there's a term 1 and a term 2 in all of our semesters for the online program. So the timing is a little bit different. We won't dive too deeply into that just now, but we can absolutely connect at a later time. Like this, we both do online advising, but this webinar is much more specific to the residential kind of timeline. But yeah, there's a summer term 1 and a summer term 2, and if a person was hoping to start online this summer, they should have this whole exact same application process completed by April 18th.
Thank you so much. So yeah, I'll let for the sake of time, I'll go into our next slide. Just 1 second here. There we go. So yeah, so tuition. So for the 30 credit master's degree program, it's $42,000 for the whole degree. You have the opportunity of starting in the fall, and you can finish, take it within a year. But you also have the ability to do it up to 5 years. That will determine that will determine how your financial aid will play out and the funding that you will get. We will provide a link though in this though to financial aid. And if you guys have any more questions, just in more detail about anything in general in terms of scholarshiping, FAFSA, we're totally available to help with that and to connect you with Melissa and Deb to field any of those questions. Genevieve, though, do you have any is there any more just details that they should take away from this that I might have been missing? I just want to, for the sake of time, just not try to go too far into the rabbit hole of this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let's look at those next couple of bullets. And I will just note that the overall cost is $42,000. So in the residential program, which is designed to be a year, you're looking at $42,000 for the year. But each semester, your tuition cost is based on the number of credits you're in. So it may not be the same cost semester by semester. If you're taking, say, 12 credits, then 9 credits, then 12 credits to complete, or 6 credits to complete your degree. So that's how the tuition balances. Anybody who's looking to start the degree this fall should be filling out a 2022-2023 FAFSA if they're planning on using federal aid. Federal aid at the postgraduate level, so all of our master's programs are JD programs. The federal aid system differs from undergraduate in that the only aid available federally is in the form of loans. So there are not the same grants and scholarships and things like that that undergrad students may already be used to. And the oh my goodness, I just lost my thought. So I think we'll move into, segue pretty nicely from financial aid being one of the student resources, yes, into some of the other student resources that our residential and online students can use.
Yeah. There we go. So here's a list of all the student resources that we have in our campus offices. So this range from our student service offices to financial aid, our bookstore, which once you're accepted, you'll do a lot of work with in terms of getting the textbooks that you need and the required materials. Our library is very extensive, multi-floor, tons of study space, very, very great for academic resource. I used it all the time when I was here. As a master's student, the academic success program, I'll just highlight that, as a master's student taking some classes with 1Ls and 2Ls, did not feel as intimidating, knowing that I had the academic success program to work with, to help with any essays or projects that I was there. They're very supportive and they really want you to succeed. So I will always speak highly of those guys. Career services, Monica, she's amazing. Day one, once you get accepted, start talking to her, start telling her about what you're thinking, what program, where do you want to go with this? She might be able to, give you some tips or tricks, or who knows, she might even know an alumni that you might be able to talk to speak about that field. Our academic centers and program, and then lastly, the Office of Alumni Relations. All resources here are available to you. They're extremely accessible. They're all managed by people that care very much about you and your success. Their hand is out there. You just got to reach out and take it. And we're here too along the way. So if you need help with any introductions or, just fielding any questions, we'll help you with that. So please don't, the train doesn't end with admissions just because you got admitted. You can use this as a resource, and we'll gladly connect you to whoever you need to be connected with if you're not sure. So next, I just want to share with you our contact information here. I'm also going to put mine real quickly in the chat. So that you guys are welcome to email me if you have any questions about this. I also want to let you guys know that we will share this. We typically share recordings from our webinars. So that's something to be on the lookout as well. And yeah, Genevieve, do you have anything that you would like to share before we close out? Or is there any questions that have been asked that I haven't addressed yet?
No, I do think we addressed most of the questions. Of course, Nasser is definitely indicated. I certainly do. We do want to be respectful of everybody's hopefully wonderful Saturdays. So we won't make anybody stay any longer, but I'm more than willing to stay a few more minutes if there are some questions. Maybe now having heard some of this, it's knocked a couple of thoughts around. But no, we so appreciate your joining us today, and are here, and our purpose, my purpose, the reason I am here is to answer these questions and help make sure that the information that you need access to, you can access. I certainly believe that most of the people in the office feel very similarly. So please don't hesitate to contact us.
Yeah. So yeah, on that note, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A, and we'll stay on we'll stay here and we'll help you out. But otherwise, enjoy your Saturday. It's cold here in Vermont, but it's bright and sunny, so it's like good for snowshoeing or just shoveling, I guess, in general. We've gotten a lot of snow. But yeah, thank you guys for your time. And if you don't have any questions, please enjoy the rest of your day.